you can have, this test file is a local file. It's not on the server. And as long as you're signed into the same Claris ID account, you can connect to anything in your Claris account. So if you have any projects in Studio, you can connect, like this is one I'm developing. And I would then, there's no data in it, but it automatically creates the layout, the fields, and you can sync the data that's coming from Studio. Now, if you come in here and you want to add fields to this table, you can add fields, but those fields will not sync back to Studio. So like if you wanted to create like some calculation fields that combine some things together, they're not going to transfer back to Studio, but you will be able to see any of the data here. And I believe you can create new records that will then sync back to Studio. So I thought it was interesting that you didn't need a hosted database in order to connect to Studio. So that was just something I learned today. So I just saw this as something where, I mean, I don't know, maybe there was a use case where a client needed an online form and they just wanted to pull it into a local database because they, Susie's the person that manages it, and for whatever reason, they didn't want it connected to their normal system. They could actually have a local file for dealing with the Studio stuff. So I just found it sort of interesting that server wasn't required, or even like a Connect automation that you could actually create this sort of ghost relationship. Like I could delete this, and like I don't actually need to have any other tables in here. Like you can literally just have that shadow table. So I thought that was also kind of interesting.
We're creating a new client questionnaire where when we have a client that we're just starting to work with, and we can send them a URL that lets them go through a anonymous data entry form where they can put in the name of their company, their preferred billing address, whether they'd rather get an email invoice or a snail mail invoice, who the preferred billing contact is, and a couple other, I don't remember what all the questions we were asking, but the idea of just giving a new client an easy way to put in a dozen, probably less than a dozen, eight or nine, 10 data points. And then that goes straight into our FileMaker app that tracks that stuff anyway. I think that's a perfect example of it. And one that Claris was showing, I think, is also a perfectly good one in some cases. And that was just an anonymous, information request form on a website. If you wanted.
I'm working on the same thing, like that one that I have set up is to help the devs to write better customer stories and blog posts so that they can just kind of chunk information. And then I'm going to create a Claris Connect where it's going to take that and make it a Google Doc and then send a notification to Brandon and me that there's a new entry that's come in. That's the plan anyway.